This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
You are tuned in to the FowlWeather Podcast, the forecast to your next successful hunt. Coming to you from the home office, Jack's Reef, New York.
Where the heck are the ducks? That is what everyone is asking. Well, not everyone. Remember, ducks do exist. We also remind our listeners that we are at a low point in the population. What's going on with ducks to the north? Why food matters? And you should ask more from your lease, males per female in the harvest, and your duck migration forecast. All this week on the FowlWeather Podcast. Hey, thanks everybody for listening, and remember to share, like, and follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, and Instagram. We'd also appreciate it if you'd take a second to rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as share the FowlWeather Podcast with friends. Remember that you know where the ducks are at before the ducks know where they're at. We're really thankful for our every week listeners. You folks know who you are, those that never miss a single migration forecast episode each Monday morning. Y'all are as ate up as me about ducks, duck biology, and duck migration. Our dedicated weekly listeners can pick the best days to hunt because the FowlWeather Podcast forecasts fresh ducks hot from the north. Shoot the ducks from the north before they know where they're at. And remember that we are the only science-based duck migration forecast available, brought to you by hunters, for hunters. I'm your host, DrMike, coming to you from the chilly home office in Jack's Reef. Well, our duck season in New York is done, other than Long Island that runs through January, so we've been on the hard water ice fishing this week, or tucked away with the dogs in front of the wood stove, staying warm. Our local lakes have good ice in many locales, so I can tell you the ducks are not here on most places. We've got whole lakes that have 5 to 6 inches of ice across them now. Folks are running snowmobiles, all that. Be safe if you're out there. Obviously, ice is sketchy here and there yet still, but be safe if you're out on the water, hitting those perch or those walleye or those pike or whatever you're after. So we've had a good mess of fish at the farm here and enjoying the cold. So we do have to remember, though, that up until recently, the weather was extremely warm and generally dry across duck country USA. In fact, October to December this year was 130 warmest out of 130 years for the continental U.S., so we can't forget that. We have to remember that ducks have had it pretty easy weather-wise most of the fall migration. Better than last year, but still warm. And many of these ducks have patterned to trying to remain farther north. But again, if we look at the Great Lakes ice right now, it's still behind the 20-year normal conditions for ice cover on the Great Lakes. But it's going to catch up real quick here, folks. I'd expect it to get busy this coming week with the extreme cold conditions early in this week. I'd say starting today through Tuesday and Wednesday, we're going to grow some ice pretty seriously in the North Country. These extreme conditions coming warrant a comment on being safe out there, my friends. We've had 2 tragedies this year, and we don't need any more. 2 California boys drowned while duck hunting back in December, and a boat accident resulted in a traumatic brain injury to Ben Wharton from Arkansas. Our thoughts are with Ben and the families of these young men. No duck is worth your life, so take the proper gear and precautions out there, my friends, across duck country. All right, the hoodies, the FowlWeather Podcast hoodies are sold out, so thank you for your orders. We still have sticker packs for your gear and trucks, though, so if you're interested in those, go ahead and have a look at our shop page on the FowlWeather Podcast webpage. Next up, where are the ducks? So please stick with us. Hold on, folks. Don't turn that channel. We've got some really exciting news for you. The FowlWeather Podcast has teamed up with Wildlife Strategies. That's right. I'm now working directly with Ryan Delaney of Wildlife Strategies to build value into your land. Wildlife Strategies is already known for quality wildlife habitat management, be it deer, turkeys, ducks, or whatever you pursue. Ryan knows his stuff. Look, I don't add my name to just any business, but I believe in what Wildlife Strategies is doing for landowners throughout the Southeast U.S. and beyond. If you want science-based solutions to create great wildlife habitat, Wildlife Strategies is your best bet. If you're interested in ducks, when we say, may your skies be filled, well, Wildlife Strategies does just that. They fill your skies with ducks. Contact Ryan Delaney today at ryan@farmlg.com for a site visit. You won't be disappointed you did. Ryan covers the southern tier of states, and I'm available to build habitat management plans across the northern tier. Contact us today for a quote. The Wildlife Strategies team sees your property through from the initial assessment and development of a 3-year time frame management plan through annual check-ins and course corrections as needed. Contact Ryan today at ryan@farmlg.com or DrMike@FowlWeather.co. You won't be disappointed you did. Fill your skies with ducks and your forests and fields with deer and turkey with Wildlife Strategies. Remember, if you are interested in wetland or other wildlife habitat consulting, to contact me at DrMike@FowlWeather.co. Our schedule's really filling up fast for the 2025 season, and we probably only have one more opening for big properties. We could probably do a lot of small stuff, but for a big property, we probably have room for one left. So if you have interest in a site visit, give me a shout. Our services can also be found by going to FowlWeather.co and clicking on the consulting link in the upper right corner of the page. We also specialize in small property management, so don't worry if you're not a big property owner. We do small property management for food plots and green space renewal. So let us help you find a way to kill those big bucks on small plots. We do it here at the farm every year. We also want you to consider reaching out about management of lease properties. As we'll note later in this episode, if you have food, you have ducks right now, and not all leases are created equal. Just because you're a farmer or a contractor and so on doesn't mean you know how to grow food to attract ducks. Let's just talk about the Boot Heel in Missouri, for instance. It seems like there's a pit blind in every rice field out there, but most of those farms just have water. They really don't have food for ducks, and so it's really hard to hold and attract birds and have good shooting. Landowners should consider the money they could make by reserving a portion of their farm as real duck habitat and hiring someone to manage that duck food for them. I'm talking moist soil mostly, moist soil stuff, but not planting and leaving crops standing, because that gets expensive, right? And so you could use your lower productivity portions of a farm, and why not make that money from a quality lease? If everything around you is junk and you can provide a quality product, why not do that? And charge a premium for your hunting lease. We just have too many hunting leases, and even clubs, for that matter, that aren't actually producing food for the ducks. It's also bad for the ducks, right? Like, it's just a desert out there in a lot of places. I think it happens in Northeast Arkansas, too. If this sounds like something you'd be interested in, right, about improving your farm for ducks, improving your lease for ducks, improving your club for ducks, definitely contact Ryan Delaney of Wildlife Strategies. Again, we've got a lot of new listeners we keep picking up, and folks are asking what the WSI is, Weather Severity Index, what the WSI is, and how it works so well to predict duck migration. So we have a specific page with a link to the WSI info video. Visit us at FowlWeather.co and click on the migration page in the upper right corner. All right, and back into the episode. So where are the ducks? Well, kind of everywhere again this year. Some concentrations where there is good food, and that is key right now. Food and sanctuary, because remember, days are getting longer, and these ducks are starting to think about heading back north. The weather certainly won't let them do that right now, especially this coming week with the extreme cold. But also remember that ducks start to coast at this time of year. Many are on their terminal locations and know where the food and safe places are. But in cold like this, they have to feed some to sustain. But most are actually still losing weight at this time of the year as they tend to coast on what fat reserves they got in November and December. So you can't pressure them too much either. So where are the ducks? Most of them are on food, as I said, and really hitting it hard, then trying to move to a place to sit still and wait out the cold. We did pick up ducks in the Mississippi Alluvial Valley, the MAV, for sure with this cold. But telemetry data also says there's a lot of mallards that are kind of sticky to where they are. And hey, I'll admit when I'm wrong. Well, at least that it seems like a few more ducks are still at the latitude of Missouri, kind of southern Illinois, than I would have thought given this cold. But Houston Havens of the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, MDWF&P, reports that duck numbers did go up in the early January count, but mallards are a bit more of an outlier. Even though they increase, they are still well below the average for this time of year, which I would expect with a lower population. But the point is that it isn't like ducks don't exist. The non-mallard ducks, the other dabblers, increase pretty substantially on the Mississippi side of the MAV, which is not unexpected given this cold and what our weather severity index tells us. The mallards can stick it out longer, and we've seen the videos of them trying to hang on frozen rivers. But really, look at how many ducks that is. It's like 1,000 ducks or something in a lot of these videos. It really isn't that many ducks, and there are certainly still concentrations in the South. Also, unfortunately, years like this, the timber hunting, though, it's really not that great. A lot of the woods just froze out, right? The mallards, weren't really in the big woods well early, and it was dry, for quite a while. And then when the cold did come, it drove too deep south and froze out a lot of timber. Yuck. Other places lost ducks, too, like a lot of coastal areas that had blue wings because of kind of that extreme warm this fall. A lot of the blue wings stuck on, the coastal regions of the Mississippi, Central, and Atlantic flyways. But this cold recently, they jumped ship on that last cold front and kind of went to the Caribbean or Central America. A lot of people lost their blue wings. So if you're having a rough year, we get it. But the word on the street is that ducks do exist, right? If you are in the South and looking for mallards, you might have some. But I'd suggest, focus on the other ducks, the gadwall, the widgeon, the teal, and so on. They're really your best bet if you want to round out the season with some good shoots. Also remember that when the extreme cold comes early this week, my bet is that most ducks try to sit it out and try to wait it out. Mallards will continue to trickle in from the north for sure. More on the forecast a little later in the episode. Next up, male to female ratios in the harvest in your cold migration forecast. Look, folks, the Farmland Group across the Mid-South is your one-stop shop for real estate brokerage, consulting, management, lending, and appraisals. If you own land or you want land, the Farmland Group is where it's at. With over $500 million in farm sales and growing, Gwynn and Shelby Smith have you covered. Look, if you're thinking about buying or selling, contact the Farmland Group to access their full suite of services. If you already own property and want to build equity and value, the Farmland Group gets it done. If you're looking to purchase a new property, well, they get that done too, and they have access to some of the best lending available. Looking to sell? Get it appraised with the Farmland Group affiliated appraiser. But let's be clear for our listenership too. They also offer farm and hunt property management to create places that attract more ducks and more bucks. Who doesn't want that? More ducks and more bucks. Let the Farmland Group build value into your property. Find them today at farmlg.com. That's farmlg.com. You're not going to be disappointed. Contact Shelby Smith today at farmlg.com and let him know that the Foul Weather Podcast sent you their way. And we are back. So there is a lot of chatter out there about why not go to one hen mallard given the low population. What is the harm? Okay, why not go to one hen widgeon or one hen gadwall or one hen anything? Okay, obviously you can't tell them apart, right? Like you can mallards. But the comment is that this is going to help the duck population, or at least it can't hurt it. No arguments there, other than when you look at the sex ratio in the harvest. Plenty of non-mallard ducks, the other dabblers, have a way less skewed harvest ratio of males to females. Why? Well, we can't tell them apart that easily. Most of us are trying to shoot green when we shoot mallards. That's just a fact. Sometimes in the dark or on a slow day, a brown duck dies, but not too often. In 2023, the male to female ratio for mallards in the Central Flyway was 3.53. That is, we shot 3.53 males per every female. But for widgeon, it was 1.76, and for gadwall, it was 1.68. So we're shooting a lot more hens as a proportion in those species. And those populations aren't plummeting. Heck, black duck is basically at a 1-to-1 ratio, and pintails are a bit more skewed towards males at around 2 males per female, because later in the season you can tell them apart, and everybody likes to shoot a stud sprig. So it really does make you scratch your head, though, and wonder how all these other duck populations ebb and flow, increase and decrease along with the habitat, when we are shooting a lot greater proportion of hens to drakes than we are in mallards. It makes you wonder why we have a hen limit on mallards, and if it really makes a difference at all. Anyhow, not going down that road too much today. I'm looking into a really cool analysis coming soon that will shed some light on how hen harvest stacks up. Does it matter? Another one real quick, and I really like the band recovery study conducted by the University of Missouri that showed a shift of mallards north, but not too strong over the years. But I do want to point out that as we get increasingly warm winters, that we also seem to have an increasing number of ducks remaining in an area once the season has closed. These folks, the Missouri folks here, used bands to look at how latitude of recovery had changed through time. That is, were ducks staying farther north than previously? But remember that a duck that is banded and stays north where a season has closed, which they're doing more and more, we're seeing it right now with the telemetry data, well, that duck just can't get shot. So the shift that they detected of mallards staying farther north, it can only be conservative. That is, the shift is probably greater than detected. I'd challenge them to find a way to estimate that and weight the results in future studies to understand what the impact of years like this, with a lot of ducks still lingering or trying to linger for a long period of time in mid and northern latitudes where seasons are closed and that band cannot be recovered. Alrighty, on to this week's forecast. Cold, cold, cold is the word, my friends. So be safe out there, first and foremost. You don't want to literally be stuck out in the cold with a boat motor that isn't working. I'm going to start in the Atlantic Flyway this week because it really seems like this is a place with some mallard movement, especially early in the week. But those WSI values aren't really that great. They're great enough to cause a migration, but it won't be a massive movement, and many of the mallards are likely to kind of try to sit it out. But I'd expect a movement of early dabbling ducks to continue into the deep south, and mallards to move into mid-latitudes early in the week with the cold front that is bringing nighttime temperatures into the single digits and maybe even 0 degrees here at the farm in Jack's Reef Country. Brr. Everything starts to moderate later in the week, so it's likely that, they're at some correct latitude where that thaw happens, that ducks will move and reshuffle on that thaw, probably somewhere around North Carolina on Friday through the weekend. So be ready for that reshuffling on the thaw as well. In the Mississippi Flyway, as noted previously, a lot of the mallards with telemetry units still aren't budging. So maybe take some time to focus on the other dabbling ducks, especially on the thaw after the beginning of this week's extreme cold. There's going to be a reorganization of ducks or reshuffling to find food and refuel a bit after the cold. So do your scouting, but understand that ducks might just like to hunker down this week. In the Central Flyway, we're seeing WSI values. This is really where the cold pushes the furthest south. We're seeing WSI values great enough as far as south as Kansas and Oklahoma to move mallards into Texas. We'll see. I bet the mallard shooting in Oklahoma and North Texas right now is really picking up. Other dabblers are going to continue to the coast. And again, if the pintail and redhead shooting isn't spectacular throughout much of coastal Texas all week, I'd be surprised. The Pacific flyway's kind of been a slouch and has the case of stale ducks for weeks and weeks now. But it seems to get a little better this week with some cold moving into the intermountain regions along with some more precipitation that might give ducks a reason to move into California this week. It's probably the best WSI values we've seen in weeks, so across the board migration in the Pacific flyway is expected. Nothing massive, but at least something more than the stale ducks y'all have been up against for the last month. Just like the rest of the continent, early in the week is the polar plunge as the polar vortex stretches pretty strongly down into the mid-continent. Not many weeks left, my friends, across duck country, so stay warm, be safe, and get after them. And please remember that the Foul Weather Podcast is not responsible for your bad decisions, so really, seriously be safe out there, my friends, across duck country. Thanks for listening. And as always, may your skies be filled and shoot straight, my friends.